Fire. Mr. President, are you interested in 2014 World Cup Commission of Inquiry report? The white paper.
What?
The 2014 World Cup. That is the Commission of Inquiry white paper, the report. Mr. President, please, are you interested? Because we've heard nothing at all from your minister and yourself. More fire. Mr. President.
No, that's
no. It's 3 in 1. So let me just put it. No, this is the question. Then also, do you have the courage to move for change within FA leadership in the face of gross mismanagement of the national team and the Ghana Premier League? Are you satisfied with the output of your sports minister after 1 year, Mr. President? More fire. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take the third and the last one. I'll take a woman, Nanantu.
Mr. President, my question is, something unprecedented happened in Ghana here. That is during your first year. That is the coming in of visitors, mostly presidents. Classical example was the Emir of Qatar, President Macron, and all those people coming in. In your view, Mr. President, what do you think accounted for their interest in coming into Ghana, especially in your first year?
Mr. President.
The answer about the 110 is the same as I gave at the beginning. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. Let us see the performance of the government. So far, I believe the government is performing well. That's my assessment. You may have a different assessment, but that is my assessment, and that is the justification for the numbers that there are. They were brought in to do a job, not just to fill offices, and I believe that they are doing a good job. So that's my response. Am I interested in the 2014 white paper? I think that on these matters, truth is usually the best answer. To be honest, I've forgotten about the 2014 white paper, but I have no doubt that my Minister of Sports is fully up to it and will advise in due course what should be the reaction of me and the government to it. But it has not been something that has been very much on my radar, the 2014 white paper on sports. As far as mismanagement within the Football Association is concerned, my understanding is that the Football Association, by FIFA rules, by all the rules, is supposed to be an independent organization, and that those who are involved in football administration in the country will deal with issues of mismanagement, if mismanagement there is. I don't believe it's in an area where the government should intervene to sort things out, if things need to be sorted out. Those in the industry, those in the sector, those in football are the ones who are meant to deal with football issues. And my understanding is that is a basic rule that FIFA is very, very, very insistent on, that there should be no executive interference in the administration of football anywhere. The output of the sports minister, so far so good as far as I'm concerned. If your if your view is different, well. I think that the international standing status of Ghana, which has drawn so many people here in this time, I see it as a reflection of two things. First of all, as the world commending the Ghanaian people for staying the course as far as democratic engagement is concerned. That election after election, we're able to go through the process and find peaceful ways of resolving if there are any disputes, and go through the process in a peaceful and an acceptable manner. And that we ourselves accept the changes of government that have come upon us, that we have willed for, and continue to organize our state on a unified, open, democratic base. I think that is something that is to the credit of the Ghanaian people. I don't believe that is a credit to the government of the day, but so much as to the people of Ghana for being able, despite the volatility and the turbulence in the area in which we live, to maintain focus on our democratic engagement. And secondly, there I think the government comes in. Many of the things that we have said we want to do and are doing are obviously striking a chord with many people. The other day I was in Takoradi to open Twyford Ceramics Limited, which is owned by people from China. It was interesting to hear the comment of the Chinese owners and proprietors saying that they were particularly excited by the one district, one factory concept and policy, because for them, that is at the heart of how China has transformed itself in the last 30, 40 years. The basis for rural industrialization, which is really what has brought China to where it is today. So I think that at the same time, some of the things that we say we are doing, we want to do, is striking a positive chord. And that is, I think those are the two phenomena that are coming together to bring so many people here. I think also, well, I don't know, the Macron interview has always taken on a different dimension. I'm not sure whether that is an attractive thing or something that will help people when they come and they see the president talking the way I did. But I think that it is. And at the end of the day, there's a part of it. You mentioned Qatar. There's a part of it, I think, that we in Ghana also have to take seriously, and that is the fact that we have friends from different parts of the world, from different political and economic, social systems. But we continue to want to chart our own path. We want to continue to determine matters of friendship on our own terms. And that sense of sovereignty, that sense of independence, is also, I think, an attractive concept about Ghanaians. And it is something that we should hold on to very, very strongly, that we will judge matters, whether they are international or domestic, continental, regional, on their own merits, and decide for ourselves at any one time what is the Ghanaian interest, how do we assess, and not necessarily because a particular big power or whatever will prompt us to say do this and do that. I think that too is something that a lot of people are finding very engaging about our country. So,
please, this time I'll do print media. It looks like I've forgotten print media. I'll take Crusading Guide, Techi Bwedu from Daily Graphic. Who is from the Daily Graphic?
It's Kwesi Pratt. He's also here. Kwesi Pratt. If you don't allow him to say, he will say you are deliberately discriminating against.
My name is Gordon Asaribidiako from the New Crusading Guide. Happy New Year, Mr. President.
Thank you.
We are in the 25th year of the Fourth Republic. And 2012-2013, you led the MPP to the Supreme Court, the petition. I would like to find out whether the live coverage, the outcome, and then the immediate concession or the acceptance of the ruling is a major hallmark of the 25th anniversary of the Fourth Republic.
So please, I'm sorry, you have posed that question again.
Okay.
I want to understand from you.
What I'm saying is that we are in the 25th year of the Fourth Republic. In 2012-2013, you and two others went to the Supreme Court to petition against the election. And then there was a live broadcast. The ruling came and it immediately accepted it. I'd like to find out whether you deem that one, at least the three, the petition, the live broadcast, and the acceptance, as one of the major hallmarks of the Fourth Republic. Please, are you clear now?
I'm clear.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much. My name is Charles Techibwedu. I write for the Daily Guide newspaper. Mr. President, some still feel unsatisfied about your quest to fight corruption. How do you convince such people that your quest to fight corruption is genuine? Thank you very much.
And then I said Daily Graphic. Yeah.
Mr. President, my name is Victor Kwakume, the Daily Graphic. My question is, the government in 2015 bought back the majority shares of PSC, the Shipyard, from the Malaysians and subsequently handed it over to Gapua. However, the legal titles to cement the transfer have still not been done. When is government hoping to do the transfer so that Gapua can take full control of the facility? Thank you.
Obviously, as one of the principal figures, the first plaintiff in the election petition, I would like to believe that many of the good things that are part of the Fourth Republic have connection with it. Certainly, the broadcast, as far as our party is concerned, helped, because it exposed for us many of the difficulties and the deficiencies of the electoral system, which we needed to address if we were going to be able to win elections in Ghana. And I think that the broadcast did that more than anything that any one individual could say, in terms of also energizing the base of the new patriotic party about the task ahead of it for 2016. So, to the extent that the broadcast helped cement, in my view, democracy in our country, definitely I think it is an important feature of the Fourth Republic. And as always, I mean, when institutions that have been shrouded in some degree of not so much secrecy, but considered confidential, courts, people don't really see what's going on there and everything. That was also a salutary decision of the Chief Justice at the time, to opening up the courts for public scrutiny and view, so that people can see exactly how this very important institution in our country works. I believe also that was an important part of cementing the support for the rule of law. The acceptance was mandated by the circumstances. I mean, there were one or two people who were saying that we should still go for a review, but I felt that at the end of the day, the stability of the country mattered more than the political fortunes of the MPP. My assessment that it was really, at the end of the day, when the verdict had been pronounced, we should move on. We are talking about building a country on the basis of the rule of law. That's exactly what it means, the rule of law, that when the judges pronounce it, you accept it. If you don't like it, if there's an avenue to appeal it, you appeal it. If you don't exercise that power, it means you've accepted it. But the rule of law doesn't mean that every time the judges have to rule in your favor. I think that's somewhere that some people like to think that is what the rule of law means, that you have to win every time. It cannot mean that. It means sometimes you can lose, and yet you're bound to accept it. And I think that if that gesture has also helped consolidate the principles on which the Fourth Republic was founded, to me, then it's a positive thing. What do I need to fight corruption to convince people? Well, I think the presentation I made, I've already indicated some. In fact, I think that the position that I've taken is potentially quite could lead me into a lot of problems, which is to say that any allegation that is made against any appointee of mine will be investigated. And that opens you up to having to investigate even the flimsiest and irresponsible allegations that are made. And you can find I don't know whether it's appropriate for me to comment. But like, for instance, what is going on in the Parliament now? The whole of a Parliament has been recalled, and all the machinery of Parliament cranked up to look into this cash was. I don't know. The main figure, I'm showing this as an example, the main figure in the one who won the award. I'm showing this to indicate how also this issue of investigating everything can sometimes lead to the person who won the expatriate for the business person has been a client of mine for over 35, nearly 40 years. His father was a good friend of my own father, and he himself has become a very close personal friend of mine. I've known him, and I eat in his house. He eats in my house. He has my telephone number. I have his. Even since I became president, I've eaten in his house a couple of times. He's also been to my house. One of the reasons I've eaten in his house is that he lays the best Lebanese food in Accra, and I love Lebanese food. So anybody who invites me to Lebanese food, I go. He happens to be. And this, now, I'd be amazed if somebody like that, Said Fakhri, will think that he needs to pay money to come and sit next to me. This is a man who can get me on the telephone any time of his choosing, who sees me, who comes to my house, and whose house I go to. But nevertheless, the accusation has been made, so it is being investigated. I see part of the problem I have in this very broad commitment that I have made can sometimes, but the genuineness, always the proof of the pudding is in the eating. We will see how the special prosecutor conducts himself. We will see whether investigations that are mounted and serious charges against people whom I have appointed, whether they are brushed under the carpet, or all of these things are matters that will unfold. And I think it's in an area whereby actions will speak louder than words. Transfer of the title of to Gapoha of Tema Shipyard. I was under the impression that the title of the transfer had been completed, because I know that Gapoha is in negotiations right now with people to join up for an investor to take over. I don't know, the transport minister where is he? Yeah. Can you tell us something on this matter?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, government shares in this country are in the hands of the Ministry of Finance. It is true that the previous government took a decision that the shares or the PSC should go back to GPHA. When we came to office, we realized that there were a lot of information that the Ministry of Finance were not in that. Those information were not in the hands of the Ministry of Finance. So we made a transactional advisor, and we are almost in the process of completing it. And I'm sure in about a month or 3 weeks ago, those shares will be transferred to the Ministry onward ownership of Ministry of GPHA. Then, government in the process of looking for a strategic investor, then we may go ahead with it. So the Minister of Finance has almost completed the process with the transactional advisor to transfer the shares to GPHA. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have just about 10 minutes to go. I'm going to take 3 senior journalists who are here. Kwesi Pratt, Ebo Kwansa, Cameron Dodo. You are from, I'll take women from other nets. Yeah, just 2. So I'll do women.
Your Excellency, Mr. President.
Yes.
I'd like to find out how you could have come to the conclusion that the Ministry of Trade has been cleared of the extortion allegations which were made, frivolous or otherwise, when indeed the parliamentary committee has just begun its work. What's the basis of your conviction that the ministry has been cleared of the allegations? And Mr. President, if you would indulge me, I'd like to add half a question. Just half a question, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
Can I go ahead? Yeah, Mr. President, what is the status of the Guantanamo Bay detainees who were exported to Ghana in the light of the agreement that the Ghana government had with the United States of America? What is the current status, Mr. President? Thank you very much.
Mr. President, at the time we were fighting for independence, we were made to seek ye first the political kingdom. Unfortunately, all the others that were supposed to be added were not added. The NDC came with a policy of Vision 2020. I think it's just about 2 years to the 2020. I haven't seen anything. You've come out recently with Ghana Beyond 8. For me, it's music in my ears, but I do not know how we are going to reach that Ghana Beyond 8. So I want you to walk this issue through with Ghanaians so that every Ghanaian will understand and comprehend how we will get there. Thank you.
Cameron.
Your Excellency, I was very pleased to hear you say that you hope the appointment of the special prosecutor will send the fear of God into corrupt people. But I think, Your Excellency, that corruption is defined too narrowly, especially in the Act. If you look at how Galamsey operates, there must be a lot of corruption in it that is hidden. How do the excavators get through the ports? Who imports them? Who are not road contractors? How do the excavators get across our roads into the bush when we have so many police checkpoints in the country? You just said that Dubai imports $7 billion of gold from Ghana. And our books show that only $2 billion is produced. Money laundering is involved, and most probably corruption. So I think the country will owe you a great debt of gratitude if you could expand the functions of the special prosecutor to include looking into how Galamsey is assisted by corruption. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Is that it? When the alleged scandal, cash for seats scandal hit, I asked the Minister of Trade to give me an explanation to respond to the allegation that had been made in the public space. I was there at the occasion, and nobody had made me aware that there was anything like people buying money to sit next to me or anything. So it came as a surprise to me. And I asked for an explanation from him, and he gave me a full account of the process that had been undertaken, the monies that had been paid, the use of the monies, and a full accounting. I looked at it, I examined it with others, and was satisfied that it had responded to the allegation that had been made. And I believe the statement he made to me is the very same statement that he made to the committee. And it has been supported by virtually everybody who was involved in the organization of the event. So I believe that I was on firm ground in saying to myself that, yes, an allegation has been made, it has been looked into, queries that I put on the matter have been responded to, and I'm satisfied with the quality of the responses that I have got. The fact that there is a public inquiry in it, in itself, to me, does not shake my own conviction that there was nothing untoward had taken place. And that is the reason why I took the position that I did. I took that position before the inquiry was launched. At the time when the parliamentary process was going on, there was a lot of talk about the procedures that the minority had taken, or defects in it and flaws in it and everything. But at the end of the day, I supported the decision taken by the Speaker that, come what may, the inquiry should be launched so that there can be no question that anybody is attempting to cover up anything. And people can see in the bright light of day there on television exactly what took place and make up for themselves their own mind whether or not something had gone wrong. And I believe that that is the way we should go in this country. It's the second time it has happened, as I say. In the years before, every effort to get government to crank up the parliamentary machinery, to investigate Suba, Jida, Boo, and this, that, all fell flat. In some cases, the Speaker didn't even allow those motions to hit the floor, let alone to be debated. I think there's a big, big improvement on that atmosphere and the way in which some of these things are now being handled. And I'm satisfied about it. I don't have any difficulty. To get more detainees, the period is up. A decision has to be made and that decision is under active. We need to be able to say something to the Parliament when it resumes, because the period under which the agreement was brought has come to an end. We have to decide whether or not we're going to grant them permission to stay, whether we're going to make arrangements for them to go somewhere else. All those things are being actively examined as we sit. But I'm fully aware that a decision on them has to be made, and it cannot be made in 6 months or 5 months. It has to be made now. Ghana Beyond Aid. I'm hoping that by the time of the message that I have to give to the State of the Nation in February is there, we'll have a complete program of the steps that I believe need to be taken for us to reach the target of Ghana Beyond Aid. What are the steps that we need to take across our society and government? The measures that we need to take to ramp up mobilization of revenue on our part, seal blockages, create the institutional framework that allows us to be able to make our own decisions and not depend on foreign bureaucracies and foreign governments to tell us what to do in X area or Y area. All those are part and parcel of the compendium of things that we need to do to be able to say, these are the steps, but those steps are going to have to be made public. You can't make a commitment like I've made and just leave it in the air. I'm fully aware of that, and that will be very soon very coming. Mr. Dodo, the expanding the capacity of the special prosecutor, I think it was being forgotten with the existence of the special prosecutor, that already we have in place existing institutions. There's an Attorney General in the Ministry of Justice. There's EYOCO. There are all kinds of institutions already in place that are there to administer the criminal law of our country. All the things that you're saying in fact, including even corruption itself, are part of the normal criminal law of Ghana. But there has been in recent times a sense that particular groups of people are being favored by the law, by the institutional arrangements that have been made, especially about people, politically exposed persons and public officials. And that is why this particular new institution has been created, to respond to that demand. I think what you should ask for is that we strengthen the capacity of the institutions that we have to deal with these matters. And I'm fully in favor of that approach. We have begun to try and get them more money. We will get more and more money into the system, and with that also recruit better and more people to be able for them to be able to do their work more effectively than has been done the case so far. But I think we have to be careful about a situation whereby you expand the special prosecutor's office and powers so that it becomes, if you like, a rival to the Ministry of Justice and all the other institutions that are already on the ground. I mean, that's a duplication that I don't think we need. Thank you.
Mr. President, I'm going to take 5 questions and then we close. And so my promise to balance gender has not been met yet. So this time I want women only to raise their hands, and I'll take 3 women. 3 women. 1 woman, 2 women, 3 women. So that will be 3 for the women. So when that balances the gender, I'll take GBC, City FM, 2, and then 1 foreign media, and then we close.
We're here forever.
Mr. President, my name is Kemini Amano. I work for GH1 Television. I'd like to know, how many jobs did your administration create, directly, indirectly, permanent, or otherwise, over the past year? Now, respectfully, while you're at it, do tell us, how does that measure on unemployment in the country?
My name is Annie Ampofo, and I represent Group Hindu Media. Mr. President, thank you for the opportunity, and I want to commend the hard work that you have put in Galamsey fight, because it has really yielded results. Mr. President, my question, and I want to refer to the question on Ghana Beyond Aid. Because we don't know, or we don't have a vision of where Ghana wants to be in the long term, when policies are introduced by political parties, a lot of questions are raised about them. All the sectors have their own plans, but we don't have a vision as to where they rise to. The U.S. President have made very derogatory comments about us. People were up in arms, but I must say it's rather a painful truth because of the way we do our things. Mr. President, the question I want to ask is, when are we having a national plan? Thank you.
Hello, Mr. President. I must say you're looking really cool and fresh.
Oh.
Well, I needed to catch your attention, so I did. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Ayram Bashan. I'm the Group News Manager for EIB Network. When you took office, you swiftly threw your weight behind the fight against illegal mining, even though it has stayed with us for as long as we could remember. But for you, it was such a big deal because of the devastation to our environment, but beyond that, to the mining sector. And we have seen that when it mattered to the president, we saw gargantuan results. It was telling. I want to also implore you, or to crave your indulgence and to plead of you that this same passion and commitment that you threw behind the illegal galamsey, is it possible to direct it towards the lawlessness that we're seeing creeping into our society by the name of vigilante groups? Especially because I know I've been following you since I was a junior journalist. You are a great advocate when it comes to law and order. It can't happen under your watch. It has a great potential of denting your legacy, and it shouldn't happen. And so we've heard you say that let's allow the the security agencies to work. But we also realize that they're overwhelmed. Maybe they need the same rhetoric that you have given and the support you have given to the illegal mining sector to be seen also directed towards the vigilantes menace, so that we will be able to reduce the negative, what would you call it, attention being given to the country within and without. Thank you.
Mr. President, my name is Nanesi Boatin. I do the Maritime and Port News on Oman FM, and therefore I speak for the Maritime and Port News, the stakeholders in the Maritime and Port News industry, the port industry. Last year, the budget came out with some tax cuts that brought jubilation to Ghanaians, especially importers, and of course the Abosokan spare parts dealers. This year, they are calling on you to intervene on what they call huge duties at the ports, and as a result of the imposition of the benchmark value by GRA. On the other hand, reports from GRA this year indicates that last year they were able to exceed their targets in terms of revenue collection. So it means that, in other words, they are doing well. Leakages are being blocked at the port. Now, government is receiving money due him. My question is, how are you going to juxtapose the two? Having your government being able to collect the right revenue for you to be able to work with it, and also putting smiles back on the faces of the importers, especially the spare part dealers at Abosokan. Thank you.
That's three, right? Please let Mr. President answer, and then we take this last three.
It's four. The statistics on the jobs, I think, as we all forget, I'm barely 1 year in office. Some of these statistics are being collected as we speak now. So the labor statistics as to the amount of jobs that have been created, those are not statistics that are at hand anywhere, even for me, for the government. I believe that they are in the process of being assembled. So perhaps in 2 or 3 months' time, we'll be in a position to answer that question in a more effective manner. But we have a national plan, and apart from that, there's the various administrations have also come up with plans. So I don't think it's true to say that the decisions that are taken without reference to a plan. There isn't. There was the 2020 plan. There's the 2030. All those plans are in place. Perhaps you're not seeing the connection between them and the specific decisions that are being taken. Well, that's maybe it's a communication matter, not so much that there is no benchmark against which it is. But I think specifically on the issue of Ghana Beyond Aid, as I said in my answer to Bokwanza, I think that the importance that this administration is placing to that concept requires that a specific program of action be laid out before the Ghanaian people, and it will be laid very, very soon, to see specifically the steps that are required today, how we can reduce our dependence in our education and health budgets on foreign taxpayers' monies. All of those are things that we need to have concretized and spelt out in detail before the country. It will be done. The passion against vigilantes, that passion, I share it. I'm as appalled as you are by that phenomenon. But you made a point which I think is also worth bearing in mind, how the security agencies are overwhelmed. I think one of the things that we are determined to do, which we have started doing, is to strengthen the security agencies in the country, both in terms of personnel as well as in equipment and logistics. The other day I launched a program to revive Operation Calm Life, to give the police greater and greater capability to deal with armed robbery and the rest. I believe that it's all part and parcel of the same phenomenon, strengthening the law enforcement agencies in such a way that they can deal with this phenomenon. My legacy, we'll see about the legacy. The legacy is for people when they retire. I'm more concerned about what we need to do now to make sure that our country has law and order. I think that is really a concern of all of us. And the vigilante phenomenon is as distasteful to me as it is to the rest. But we can deal with it. First of all, there's exhortation, but ultimately it's strengthening the law enforcement agencies to be able to deal with it. And also, of course, generally improving the access to jobs for a lot of young people would be definitely a process that will help in that exercise. This difficult issue between the mobilization of revenue and the position of special interest groups in the economic system is a difficult question. But I'll be surprised if indeed the fiscal reforms that the administration has spearheaded so far were intended to impose additional burdens on. I think this whole business of the benchmark values is something that the Ministry of Trade is looking at to be able to. The Ministry of Finance is looking at to see how it reconciles and with the aims of the budget and the tax measures that we have taken. But it will always be a difficult balance that you have to strike. What you need to do to be able to stimulate, putting smiles on the face of people. I think about how you can stimulate economic activity and make people more competitive, and at the same time have the revenue that the state requires to be able to carry out its functions. It's a difficult balance, but it is one that we need to strike. And this particular issue about the benchmark values that the customs apply is one that is in active consideration.
Yeah, Mr. President, this is the last batch of questions. I'm very sorry we've been sitting here for nearly 2 hours. It's not possible to take everybody's question. So I'll just take GBC. This is Reuters. Where? Bloomberg. So international media, City FM. We haven't taken anybody from Ashanti. So I'll take King Edward from Ashanti and then we close. Ashanti will close. King Edward, please finish. That's it. We are done. I'm sorry. Let's go.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Abdul Hai Mumin. I work with the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. I take it that given the size of the economy, you couldn't have addressed all issues in your opening statements. And so I take it that the issues you raised are on your priority list. However, there's one issue I find not addressed in your address, which I think without it can bring every plan of yours to naught. It's this issue of security. In 2014, a young man known as Alema was alleged to have joined ISIS. In fact, his family confirmed that story. In 2016, a security expert revealed on GBC 24, in fact, he showed us evidence of how some members of ISIS were getting in touch with young Ghanaians. Just a couple of days ago, the Ghanaian police arrested some persons with 7 grenades. You didn't address that, Mr. President. How safe are Ghanaians under your watch? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I remember the Vice President said, and I said many times, that we are building a modern formal economy premised on national ID, digital address, and mobile payment interoperability. And in February 2017, in your State of the Nation address, you said, and I quote, "The process for a comprehensive national ID system and a property titling system will be completed this year." When we met here in July 2017, you repeated, "The National Identification Scheme will be working by the end of the year, as promised, and the digital address system will be functioning," end of quote. So, 2 weeks into January, what is the state of the national ID and the mobile payment interoperability system? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is Echo Moses. Bear with me, I have a cold. I report for Bloomberg News. In 2011, when oil revenue started hitting our accounts, we started recording strong growth of as much as 14%. Then the then government started doing some high expenditure projects. A few years down the line, growth was around 3.6%, and we needed an IMF bailout. Your government has come into power at a time where additional oil fields are bringing in extra revenues. And to match it, you have 1 million for every district, you have free SHS, and what have you. Mr. President, are you not over-mortgaging our future? Are you not putting us at a risk of going back to the IMF a few years down the line? Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is King Edward.
That's King Edward. Yes, and that is the last question.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is King Edward. I work for Hello FM in Kumasi. My question is, this Fulani, Agogo, Afram Plains issue that crops up every year, and whenever it does, we adopt some firefighting approach to kill it. It's on again. Mr. President, how will you assure us, or are we safe that this thing, we are going to see an end of it? Thank you very much.
Terrorism, I think my understanding is, and I think that's the reality for all of us, is something that is menacing all the countries of the world. We've known about outbreaks of terrorism in places far and away, but also places very close to us. In Côte d'Ivoire, we saw the effort in Bassam. We've seen the outbreak of terrorist incidents in Burkina Faso. We know also about the movement of jihadist forces in northern Mali and in the Sahel region. Ghana, in principle, cannot be exempt as a potential target. So the security preparedness of our country is an extremely important matter. I can hope that the efforts that are being made by the security agencies to keep a tag on potential targets, potential authors of terrorism, like, for instance, the arrests that have been made, that the security agencies in our country continue to show that level of alertedness that would enable them to nip some of these things in the bud. But I think that as far as our state is compared, especially to many of the states in our region, so far so good on our part. But it is an area where we can never, ever let our guards down. And we will have to continue to do all those things, sharing intelligence with others, beefing up our own capability. Also, of course, dealing with some of the more long-term causes in terms of, once again, economic development, employment of young people, rather than having a lot of idle young people on our hands. It's a comprehensive approach that we have to make. But I think that Ghana is stable, Ghana is secure, Ghana is safe, and I'm certainly going to do everything I can to make sure that that reality of Ghana continues. The equipment, the logistics, of resources that the agencies need to work with, we're doing our best to make sure that they have it, and generally sharpen their capability. But I think that the effort that the police have mounted in the last few days shows that they are indeed on the alert and that they are capable of giving us the protection that we all seek. Unfortunately, with the national ID system, which is delayed, the law under which the program was going to be unveiled was at the last minute subjected to another review and found to be inadequate. So a new LI, because the process has to take place and be implemented under an enabling law. A new LI is ready for submission to Parliament when Parliament reassembles on the 23rd, and after the 21 days working period is over, it will be ready to go into motion. But it is certainly not on the back burner because it's such an important aspect of our own overall strategy for going forward. The Fulani menace. Oh no, Bloomberg. We're not mortgaging the future. No, I don't think we're mortgaging the future at all. And the recourse to the IMF. My own view is that if there had been more discipline in the management of the public finances, we would not have had to recourse to the IMF in 2013 like we did. So it's an important aspect of it, is the discipline that you, government, and the people of the country are prepared to undergo will be, and that will be the best indication as to your capacity to continue to keep your ship afloat, or whether you need to rush to Washington for a bailout. For me, that discipline is nothing that the IMF has to teach us about. We're capable of imposing that discipline on ourselves and making sure that the commitments, I think I've outlined fairly clearly the various strands of policy that has been brought together this year, which has brought our economy to the more satisfactory position that it is now. A large part of it is the monetary and fiscal discipline that this government has been able to exhibit. And that will continue, because that is the only way in which, in fact, these additional expenditures that are important to be made for the development of the country do not themselves destabilize our economic system. The Fulani menace. Yes, the time has come for an attempt at a comprehensive policy to deal with it. I remember very well in President Kufuor's time, his cabinet spent many hours agonizing on what to do about the Fulani menace. Some things were put in place. One of them were to establish these kraals, cattle ranches, across the country, which would allow the cattle to be able to be not quarantined, but at least shepherded and contained in places where you can identify and hold them. The ranches and the kraals that were initially developed were abandoned. They were all fallen into disuse. We're actively, as we're speaking now, restoring one in the Afram Plains, in the Kwaru area, and there's a proposal to set up a couple of others in Ashanti and in the eastern region, which have been the source of most of the movement, because they are the green areas of the country. But yes, it is important that we devise a comprehensive proposal to be able to deal with the matter, not just the firefighting as you're talking about. But it is important. But once you're devising methods of how the cattle can be maintained and properly quarantined and looked after, that also the pure law and order measures that need to be taken to prevent violence, to make sure that the herdsmen behave within the context of the law in Ghana. We cannot overlook that. And that will have to continue until we get from them consistently behavior that it goes along with respecting the laws of the country. But the other, there are matters which we all need to look at. I mean, if you have a very effective system of ranching across the country, are you thereby also inviting all the cattle of West Africa to head towards Ghana? Because you have a system that perhaps, I mean, these are, and it's part of the thinking that is going on to be able for us to find a solution. So, yes, I agree. It is time for us to be able to unveil a comprehensive resolution of this matter and not to continue just to depend on the the law enforcement aspect of it, but to deal in a more holistic manner with the issue of these cattle that are ranging across various parts of our country. My understanding is that the Sahindran is now complete. We will spend some more time in the course of the year. I'm hoping that at the very least in another 6 months you have an opportunity to come here for us to see how the Akufo-Addo administration is doing in your eyes, and what are the problems that confront our country and what we need to do it together. But I think it's important for us, for you also, to have from me a clear sense of the role that I think that you should play, and it is a very positive role. I'm seeing in the Ghanaian media this constant engagement about issues of public concern and the determination to exact from us, who have been given the privilege of executive authority, accountability. And I think that is the way it should be. And I am fully in support of that process. And long may it continue. So thank you very much indeed for this morning. And we'll be meeting again soon.
We're very grateful. Please, we would have a closing prayer, and then the national anthem will be played. That will be the end of the matter. And then there will be snacks and refreshments after. So let's pray. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, praise be to Allah, Lord of the worlds, Master of the Day of Judgment. You alone we worship, you alone we ask for help. Guide us on the straight path, the path of those on those who go astray, nor of those who earn your anger. We thank you for the life of our country, for our democracy, for the peace that we enjoy in our nation. We pray for wisdom, for strength, for the President of the Republic, his vice, his ministers and state actors, and also the media, that we may all continue to keep watch, even as we acknowledge that we keep watch in vain if you do not keep watch. In your mighty name we have prayed. Amen.
So that's the end of the press encounter here at the Flagstaff House with President Akufo-Addo. Questions were asked from the media as well, and the President touched on several areas, including the recruitment of youth unemployment, macroeconomy, the improvement on GDP growth. He talks about budget support for the budget, and areas such as NHIS and salaries have been paid. So, resurrecting the economy is what the President spoke about. The President also spoke about the job for government, improving job opportunities, clearing of the mess in general. So he also touched on Planting for Food campaign, and Galamsey Menace also came in, accelerating in development with this signing of development bills. So a whole lot of things were made. I have my colleague Alfred here. Alfred, you were here actually. The President touched on a lot of issues. What really caught your attention?
Well, despite the fact that he spoke, what caught my attention was that the Minister of Information did not catch my attention and the attention of any of our representatives from Media General, and that we are very, very unhappy about and extremely sad. I am questioning his definition of what fairness is in calling people to ask the president questions, because some of the media houses had 2-3 people asking questions. It is indeed a very, very sad development for us here. I mean, fairness has one meaning, and it is not relatively subjective depending on how your understanding of fairness is. So I'm just hoping that when he plays back the tape, just as he said that the first encounter, they played the tape, they learned their lessons, and they were hoping to make some corrections. I'm afraid that a lot more mistakes have been made in ensuring that journalists are duly represented. Yes, to some extent, a number of people ask questions, but I'm just hoping that if he plays back the tape, these notable mishaps, for the lack of better expression, will be corrected in the next Meet the Press. I'm not expecting perfection. Obviously, not all of us will be able to ask the questions. But when you talk about fairness, it must be exhibited to the latter. And if you're saying one person per media house, you should also have two. Probably would have had one. They're not one. None of us asking questions. It's sad.
So clearly, I mean, Media General should have been called. At least one of us should have been invited, and it wasn't done. And that's not a good thing at all. Obviously, we hope that next time, like you said, when they review the tapes, they will realize that they should let things be equal for everybody to ask questions. But let's go to the substantive thing today. The president, areas he touched on. I mean, what he's done in the year since he came into office as president. Were you satisfied with some of the things he said so far?
The president, as we do know him, would have to say about what he has done. The questions you might have issues with others. Was issues because he's almost always in touch with his people. One of the issues that he touched on, which because there are no opportunities for follow-up questions, we would expect that we will not be able to ask them, is that when he started his submissions, he elaborated very vividly the picture that really looks, youth unemployment really looks like. I mean, across the country, touching on the immigration employment, Ghana forces, police, and other agencies. In my view, after painting that vivid picture of youth unemployment and underemployment, because they are two different things, I was expecting that he would spend same and equal amount of time telling us vividly, point to point, the exact interventions that government is doing or intends to do to create jobs for the youth, and also what he intends to do in the next 6 months or 1 year, because we're going to come back here again in 6 months, to cut down on the numbers that he mentioned, because he put figures to all of them. 26,032 for Ghana Armed Forces, only 1,800 were picked. The police, 158,734, only 2,000 were picked. Because say same for Immigration Service, 84,000, they were looking for just about 500 people. So he has an idea of how the figures look like. I was hoping that as he has an idea of the figures in terms of the problem, we must also have figures in terms of the solutions as to how many job opportunities he is going to create to address this number that he put out there. Secondly, these young people and even those who are employed and are not being paid adequate salaries are paying rent. Rent is a major issue in this country, and that's what you and I were hoping, and Komla Kluchi as well, who were represented here, including Michael Otieje, were hoping to ask. One of the 5 questions we have, that look, the law is clear, black and white, when it comes to rent in this country. Governments gone by, and indeed present, have turned a blind eye to the blatant disregard of that particular law by landlords and landladies who own properties and renting them, so that these young people are having to face the problem of paying 2 years advance rent, but the law says take 6 months advance rent? Have they turned a blind eye because of the convenience of it? If the president is able to solve and address this problem, one major problem, I'm sure that he will be able to get the nod of Ghanaians. The same enthusiasm that he addressed other issues such as Galamsey, which we are all lauding him, and he's also lauding us for, the